Right now in Japan, there's this huge debate brewing over their public broadcaster NHK. And really, it's a battle between tradition and technology, public good versus personal choice. But it all boils down to one simple, really powerful question. And this is the question that's at the heart of the whole thing. See, in Japan, if you own a television, you are legally required to pay a fee to the public broadcaster NHK, even if you never ever watch it. And yeah, you can probably guess that's kicking up some pretty intense conversations. All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll get into the debate itself. Then we'll look at the two big arguments, the case for choice and the case for it being a public good. We'll also tackle the practical problems, see if there's an alternative, and then kind of zoom out and ask what this all means for the future of public TV. Okay, so first things first, to really get what this fight is all about, we gotta understand the system itself. What exactly is this fee, and why has it become such a hot-button issue? So it's called the NHK receiving fee. And look, the idea behind it is pretty noble, right? A flat rate funds NHK's operations, which is supposed to keep it totally independent from commercial or government influence. You get a trusted source of information for everyone. But in our world of Netflix and on-demand everything, this whole idea of a mandatory fee is really starting to clash with the modern demand for choice. And that brings us right to the first major proposal for how to fix this: scrambling the broadcast. Basically, this means only the people who actually pay the fee would be able to watch NHK, just like any other subscription service. For the people who support scrambling, the argument is incredibly simple. Fairness means choice. In the 21st century, the thinking goes, if you don't use a service, you shouldn't be forced to pay for it. End of story. And yeah, this quote from the debate really just nails that feeling. For a lot of people, it feels less like a fee for a service and more like a tax you have to pay just for owning a TV, totally separate from what you actually watch. And look, this isn't just an emotional thing. The people pushing for this have a really clear case. They argue that scrambling creates a fair system that's based on actual usage, it respects our modern right to choose as consumers, and it would probably force NHK to be way more efficient. They even think that making the fee voluntary would build public trust, not break it. And they say, today's technology makes it all completely possible. And to back all this up, they point to a really crucial piece of evidence: public opinion. One recent survey found that a pretty significant majority, a full 60% of people actually support scrambling the signal. Their argument is that this isn't some fringe idea. It's what a lot of people want, and it reflects this modern desire for choice and control over what we pay for. But of course, there is a whole other side to this. Opponents argue that turning NHK into just another subscription service completely misunderstands the entire point of a public broadcaster in the first place. For this side of the debate, the whole mission is right there in the name: public. It's supposed to be a universal good, something that provides essential services like unbiased news, educational content, and, this is crucial, disaster information to every single citizen, whether they're able or willing to pay for it. Okay, and this slide really gets to the core of the whole thing. What's so interesting is that both sides are fighting over the same word: fairness. One side sees fairness as an individual thing, you pay for what you use, but the other side sees it as a collective thing. Everyone chips in a little bit so that a vital service is available for all of us. It's a total clash of philosophies. So their arguments really focus on the risks involved. They warn that scrambling would basically destroy NHK's public service role. It would create this information gap where poorer households just get left behind. Plus, the cost of actually implementing all the technology would be huge. And they also point to other countries, like the UK with the BBC, which is funded by a universal fee, saying that's the global standard for public broadcasting. But of course, this debate isn't just about philosophy, right? The anti-scramble side brings up some really serious practical concerns about how any of this would actually work in the real world. And these are the three big ones, right? What happens during an earthquake or a tsunami? How do you make sure low-income families aren't just cut off from information? And who is going to pay for the massive tech overhaul you need to make this happen? All right, let's break this down piece by piece. For emergency broadcasts, the pro-scramble side says, hey, simple, we just unscramble the signal for everybody when there's a crisis. But opponents are like, hang on, is that process going to be fast enough? Can we guarantee it'll work every time? Then, to close the information gap, the idea is to offer subsidies for low-income households. The other side argues that those systems are super complex and expensive to manage. And finally, on the cost to implement it all, the pro-scramble folks insist modern tech makes it cheaper. Meanwhile, the opponents worry that the huge upfront investment would just cripple NHK's ability to make quality programs in the first place.
But the anti-scrambles side isn't just about shooting down ideas. They have their own proposal for reform, one that they believe addresses fairness without throwing out the idea of universal service. They call it a sliding scale system. So instead of every single household with a TV paying the exact same flat rate, the fee would actually be adjusted based on their income, on their ability to pay.
And the logic here is pretty straightforward. Everyone still chips in for the public good, but the financial burden is spread out more equitably across society. This way, they argue, you get a different kind of fairness, one based on capacity, not on consumption, all while making sure NHK stays a resource for everyone.
So when you really strip everything else away, what this whole debate in Japan shows us is a fundamental conflict that, honestly, countries all over the world are grappling with right now.
Ultimately, it's a clash between two really powerful modern ideas. On one hand, you've got the ideal of a universal public good, this belief that some services are just too important to be left to the whims of the market. And on the other hand, you have the modern reality of consumer choice, the belief that we should only have to pay for the things we personally decide to use. So you see, this isn't just about a TV fee in Japan. It's a question we're all asking about things like libraries, parks, even public transportation. It really forces us to ask, what does it mean to be part of a society? In an era that's so defined by personal choice, what, if anything, do we still owe each other? It's a huge question with no easy answers, and one that we're all going to be debating for years to come.